Hello everybody and welcome once again to the Fancy Premier League show. It's Star Wars Day, of course. May the 4th be with you. We've got a bit of a Star Wars thing going on ourselves. I'm a Rogue One.
Yeah, I'm a Princess Leia.
And this is Mark and we're going to be enjoying his jabber.
Yes, this week we're having a look at Gabriel and Alexis Sánchez, who not so long ago were going to be locked in our squads for the season climax, but now due to poor form, we're having a rethink ahead of their double game weeks. Also, with my wildcard active, I'm going to be revealing my revised lineup and trying to explain why the Sunderland striker is now the key man. I'm not sure how that's happened, James.
Well, I don't know. I'm going to be really interested to hear how you're going to talk your way through that one. Let's begin, though, with some big numbers from game week. What are we up to? Game week 35.
Game week 35 last week.
35. And top scorer, Jules, was Eldin Jakubovic.
Wow.
Super duper Jakubovic indeed, because he got a whopping 14 points. He had a clean sheet and he saved that last-minute penalty, all to the horror of the more than 800,000 managers who had benched him for this game. That's more than 81% of his ownership, and that's not including all the people like me who sold him before the round.
I was going to say, you got rid of him just before the round. Unlucky there. But owners of Gary Cahill will have been happy. The Chelsea captain also got himself a massive 14 points. He's now scored 2 goals in the last 2 game weeks and has overtaken his teammate Marcus Alonso as the top scoring defender across the whole FPL game, which is pretty impressive. It's
extremely impressive. Let's have a look at who's been most transferred in. And, well, Jesus has risen. 100,000 managers or more bring him in to their squads after he made his first start in 2.5 months against Borough last weekend and got himself a goal. Also really popular this week has been Alexis Sánchez, despite the fact that he's only had 1 goal and no assists in the last 6 game weeks. The fact that Arsenal have got back-to-back double game weeks coming up has made him an attractive proposition.
Got a real love-hate relationship with Sanchez at the moment, but I'm keeping him in for the time being. Transferred out, though, most popular is Romelu Lukaku, despite the fact that he's still the top scoring forward in the game, but just 1 goal in his last 8 away matches means managers are getting rid of him. And part of the reason for that is the return of Jesus. Most popular transfer combination going into game week 36 has been Jesus for Lukaku, so it'll be interesting to keep an eye on that one. Coutinho also being transferred out. That's because he, of course, came off injured in the game against Watford. He came off after just 12 minutes, didn't he, James, with a dead leg. But he's supposedly meant to be fit for the Southampton game, so we'll have to keep an eye on him too.
Absolutely, keep an eye on, but also keep an eye on the clock, because we've only got until Friday evening to do our transfers this week. The deadline is 7 o'clock GMT, but because it's an early fixture, it's West Ham taking on Spurs Friday night. Now, it may be time, Mark, to reassess our Man City thinking, because on the one hand, they've got really attractive fixtures here in the end of the season. Let's see, Leicester, Crystal Palace, West Brom at home, Watford away. On the other hand, you've got Gabriel Jesus now back in the mix and scoring goals. On a third hand, if you will, you've got Sergio Aguero. He's got 50 points in his last 7 game weeks, but is maybe carrying an injury. And for a fourth hand?
It's Pep Guardiola, isn't it?
Pep Guardiola.
Unpredictable Pep. And he did it again at the Riverside. We didn't expect him to play both Aguero and Jesus up front. And he did. Jesus now back in the frame for game week 37 for the double game week. We were looking at Aguero for that, but balking at the price at 12.8. But now this guy is back in the mix. 8.7. We're going to jump on that, I think.
Right. Well, I think we may well do. Now, Pep being Pep, it's impossible to know what he's going to do. But the way that the match played out at the Riverside with these 2 up front wasn't particularly positive for City. So we've got no way of knowing if he's going to stay with it. The other factor to include in all of this is what it means for his midfield. You can see there the game against Man United. Sané and Sterling, 2 valuable performers for City in the midfield. But having Gabriel Jesus and Aguero up front meant that both of them were dropped at the weekend.
Yeah, and we said we didn't. I said I didn't see this happening because Sané and Sterling, particularly Sané, is such a key player for Guardiola. But he rested him at Borough and he decided to play wing backs, and they provided the width. The question now is he going to persevere with that? Is he going to play Aguero and Jesus up front from now on? Is Aguero's injury going to rule him out? We don't know. He's got a groin problem. We'll find out from the press conference tomorrow if he's going to be out.
Right, so while you would go for Jesus up front over Aguero, in the midfield, there's even more uncertainty than ever. Who, if any of these guys, would you advise people to get?
Well, it's still about Sané for me. He's the one, 12 successive starts before the Middlesbrough game. So that kind of indicates that he is a favourite of Guardiola. Certainly Sterling has only started 2 in 6 by comparison. So I think Sané is the way to go. Certainly that's where the market is going. And 7.7 is such a good price. If you're trying to get Sanchez in, that can save you some money there. So if you're not going Jesus, I think Sané is the way to cover the City attack.
All right, they just have the one game coming up this week, but next week, very favourable fixtures for City. Defenders, they've only had, what, 2 clean sheets in the last 7 game weeks, so that doesn't look too appetising, with the exception of the man between the posts.
Yeah, I mean, the issue with the City defence, like the entire team, is the rotation, and it's so difficult to spot what Pep's going to do with the back 4 or the back 3. But with Bravo out injured, Caballero's coming in now. He looks like he's going to get the 4 starts, and it's that price, 4-7.
Right.
For game week 37, he's a great keeper to have, particularly if you've got the bench boost and you're looking to get 2 goalkeepers, 1 off your bench and 1 starting. He's got to be an option.
Game week 37, in which they'll be facing Leicester and West Brom at home. Before that, it's Crystal Palace this weekend. They finish off away against Watford. They're great fixtures.
They are.
They're great shout.
Fixtures.
All right, I'm going to head back over to Jules. See you in a bit. Jules, we're going to talk about James v. Jules, because last week we were saying you had to pull one out of the bag.
Yeah, I had to.
You did.
I managed to do it by just 1 point.
1 point.
Just 1 point, but you know, a win's a win. A win is a win, and now there are just 3 wins between us and 3 game weeks left, so I can still manage to do this, but I need to win. I have got my wild card in action this week, so that gives me a bit of an advantage, hopefully.
Well, it certainly should do. What have you got lined up for us this week, then?
Well, of course, it is the double game week, so we've got that to look forward to. There's the klaxon. We've been waiting for it. So, of course, Arsenal and Southampton both involved in this weekend's double game week. And then don't forget, there is another one in game week 37 as well. There's also that early deadline. James mentioned it a moment ago. You need to get your team sorted by 7 p.m. UK time on Friday, because, of course, there is that Friday night game between West Ham and Tottenham. And West Ham, they're really struggling. They've not scored in 2 matches now. Tottenham, on the other hand, haven't conceded in 4. And listen to this on Harry Kane, James. He loves a London derby. He's scored 18 goals in the last 20 London derbies that he's played in.
Wow.
I think we need him in our sides.
I think we do. Also want to just flag up Swansea's clash with Everton. Everton, I was surprised to read, haven't won in their last 6 games. In that time, they've got the 2nd worst record in the league for goals conceded. Only Middlesbrough have let in more. And Swansea, who they'll be playing this weekend, looked very good last weekend. Very unlucky as well against Man United. Sigurdsson, who we'll be hearing from later on, with an absolute peach of a free kick. They could be worth a punt, those Swansea players. Yeah,
they could. But, of course, we're all focusing on Southampton and Arsenal. They're featured in the double game week. So there is a match on Wednesday, and that is going to be Southampton against Arsenal, obviously featured in this week's double game week. So let's talk more about that double game week now. I'm going to join Mark, because coming into this double game week, knowing that Arsenal and Southampton were featuring, we all had our eyes set on Manolo Gabbiadini, the Southampton striker. He then missed 3 games with a groin injury. Prior to that, he had scored 4 goals in 3 matches. But since his return, you've got a bit of a concern about him now, don't you? You don't seem to think he's going to be in form.
No, I mean, Southampton and Gabbiadini just haven't played well the last 3 or 4 games. There's certainly an intensity missing from his game and Southampton's as well. And it's a shame, because at 6.5, it looked a shoo-in for our wildcard squads and for this final run-in. But now I'm not so certain. Even with the extra fixtures, he's also being bought off early, so he was bought off before the hour mark at the weekend. That's got to be a factor as well, because Rodriguez and Long are there as options. And
also tough fixtures, even though he is involved in this double game week, away at Liverpool and then at home to Arsenal. They're not easy fixtures to be involved in anyway, are they?
No, and the thing is, Southampton aren't creating the chances they were previously. He's not getting the service that he would have got, would have been in the side in the last few weeks, and he didn't get in the first 4 appearances. I mean, these are the stats that he had. Minutes per goal, obviously he scored a goal every 70 minutes in the first 4 games in the top flight. And these are his touches in the box and his passes and his shots. 4 appearances versus 3. Look how they drop off.
They really do. Especially that. Shots. 17 in his first 4 appearances for Southampton, just 5 in his last 3. That is a huge difference.
Yeah, and this is what I'm talking about. In terms of the chances created, Southampton just aren't producing right now. And because they've got tough fixtures as well, and because Long and Rodriguez are factors, I have real concerns about Gabbiadini as an asset.
Can't really see many points coming from him then. OK, well, let's take a look at where you think fantasy managers are going to in the Southampton squad. This is in popularity of transfers coming in to game week 36. And we can see that Gabbiadini is still the most popular, despite everything we've just said. But then what about the rest of the guys on this list? Are you surprised by anyone on there?
I mean, I think it's a cost factor. Gabbiadini is proven popular because he's 6'5". He's a good striker option for that price, because there isn't much in that budget. as a replacement.
Over
so I can see why.
50,000 have him, Mark.
Yeah, and I can see why, because he's got the extra games and he's a cheap purchase, so it makes sense. But that also applies to Stevens as well. 4.2 and Yoshida 4.5. Very cheap options and ways of covering the double game week. So it makes sense, certainly for those two in defence.
So if you're going to go for any Southampton players, you'd go for those two defenders.
Yeah, I mean, they're in
Yoshida.
Yeah, they're in my squad, and it just gives you that cover, the extra game. Yoshida's got a goal threat as well. He's got 6 shots in the last 6 game weeks. No defenders had more than that. So, going forward, he could offer you something. If you don't get clean sheets, you might get a goal from him.
OK, now we've got some interesting stats on Ryan Bertrand. Take a look at this, because he's actually, surprisingly, the most consistent Southampton player when it comes to points per match. So looking at this, there are only 2 defenders who've actually got more points per match than Bertrand, and that's Coleman and Alonso.
Yeah, this was a surprise to me. He had a spell in mid-season where he got clean sheets, he got 4 assists in the space of 5 game weeks, and that really did hike up his points per match. So I can see why it's come to that. He got a goal at Chelsea as well, so he does offer you something going forward. 2 goals and 5 assists this season, but it's just that price. 5.5 is a lot to spend, I think, on a Southampton defender, when we think that perhaps clean sheets are going to be hard to come by.
Yeah, and speaking of price, 3.8 million, Nathan Ake, and he also is 4.7 points per match. Only 2 players higher than him as well in terms of defenders. He obviously picked up all those points when he was playing at Bournemouth. Now he's back at Chelsea. Do we expect him to get in that Chelsea side towards the end of the season? And if so, I'm getting him in my team at that price.
I mean, it could happen. We know that if they get the title won early, they're going to rotate, and perhaps Ake will get a chance, maybe even John Terry as well in the final game. David Luiz has got an injury as well, and Ake has come in and replaced him and looked very, very good indeed. And I think Conte has said that Ake will come in if Luiz is going to be ruled out, but we've got to see. At 3.8, if there's any chance of him starting, he's going to be in our team.
Yeah, he's definitely going to be in mine at that price. James.
It's surprising not to see James Ward-Prowse in that list, because he is the biggest name in that Southampton midfield by 1 letter ahead of Pierre-Emile Højbjerg. Anyway, here is James Ward-Prowse now telling us which of his Southampton teammates take the fantasy game very seriously.
I'd say around Thursday or Friday, I always hear him and Jack Stevens having a little chat about who they're going to put in their teams. But yeah, it's not something I particularly follow. But they seem to be enjoying it. I'm not sure who's doing the better out of the 2, but yeah, there seems to be a fair bit of chat about it anyway. I'd probably say Gabbiadini. I think obviously he's had a great goal scoring record since he's been here, and I think all the lads obviously fancy him to to add a few more.
Oh, the very fresh-faced James Ward-Prowse. Only £5 million he costs, and he's started indeed in 12 of Southampton's last 14 games. So with that double game week, yeah, it could be worth a punt. Now, you've talked about Saints. Arsenal, the other team that's got 2 fixtures in this 1 game week there. At home to Man United, then away at Southampton. So we better have a look at Arsenal. 3 wins in their last 8, Arsenal. The most frustrating side in the Premier League, Arsenal. What are you going to advise us to do here?
It's not great, is it? We've got Southampton with erratic form and these guys as well. It's difficult to see where we put our money. But I think in defence, which is where I'm looking at, certainly there are some options.
All right, with Petr Cech's one.
Yeah, I mean, Petr Cech, we've seen in previous double game weeks, we saw Lee Grant in game week 27 and also David De Gea in 34. Goalkeepers really excelling. I think Cech will do well, either in 36 or 37. He can get you save points. I think there's 1 or 2 clean sheets in there. It might be wishful thinking, but I still think Cech is going to be worth that 5.3 million.
All right, back-to-back double game weeks, as you mentioned, and certainly game week 37's fixtures look even easier, much easier for Arsenal. And as such, you reckon it's worth the 6.1 million that you would have to invest to bring Koscielny in?
Yeah, I mean, these 2 offer cheaper options, but I wonder with Mustafi coming back to fitness, he's back in training, whether Gabriel and Monreal are going to get us the 4 starts that we want. This is key to double game weeks. We want 4 starts. Koscielny certainly is. He's the mainstay in that Arsenal defence.
And the fact that Wenger is now adopting a 3-at-the-back policy means that while Koscielny's pretty much guaranteed his spot, these 2 aren't.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. I mean, Monreal has played wing-back, so it gives you an option going forward, but Koscielny's got the goal for it. He got 4 goals last season. He's also top for bonus amongst FPL defenders this season, so he's got 19 bonus points. So in a clean sheet, you're going to get some extra points, I think. All
right, well, let's have a look at our options further forward in the team. This may not take too long because there's really only 2 of them. There's Mesut Ozil and Alexis Sánchez. Now, Mark mentioned at the top, Alexis Sánchez, 1 goal, no assists in his last 6 game weeks Why would you spend 11.5 million on that?
I think it's just the fear of what he can do, because we know he can get double-figure returns. I didn't have him for that West Ham game, 23 points. That still fills me with horror when I think about it. I can't risk not having him in my team, and I don't think many can. I think with a double game week, you've got to have Sanchez. If
you're struggling to afford him because it is a big price, what do you think about Mesut Ozil?
Yeah, Ozil is an alternative, but looking back at those 6 game weeks, you talk about Sanchez getting the 1 goal. He got 2 goals, but he got those 2 goals from just 3 shots compared to 16 from Sanchez. That sums up the difference. Sanchez is such a key factor going forward. Ozil, a little bit subdued. I don't think he's worth the money.
But he's actually outscored Sanchez in the last 6 weeks.
He has, but I just don't think he's got those explosive returns in him. And I think that's what we're fearing, and that's why we have to look to Sanchez if you can afford that.
Well, a lot of managers agree with you. Let's have a look at the most transferred in from Arsenal ahead of this double game week. Sanchez there, the most popular pick. Monreal, Ozil's up there as well. Gabriel Koscielny. These last two, Giroud and Walcott. Arsenal have already played Southampton in the FA Cup this year. They beat them 5-0, sorry. And that fellow there, Theo Walcott, got a hat-trick. Could he be worth a punt?
It's such a shame that we can't turn to these two, because they would be such good options for that price.
But we can't?
I don't think so. I think, as I said, you want to get 4 matches out of the 2 double game weeks. You're not going to get that from Giroud and Walcott. I just can't see it. Not with Welbeck a factor in there as well.
All right. Doesn't get any easier, this game, does it? All right. Back to you, Jules.
Cheers, James. Coming up in part 2, we've already seen Mark's draft of his wildcard team, so we'll see an update after this, and we'll be answering your tweets and hearing from an FPL legend in Siggy.
Welcome back, everyone, to the FPL show. @official FPL is our Twitter address. And don't forget that because West Ham will be taking on Spurs on Friday night, 8 o'clock UK time, the deadline to get your teams in is 7 o'clock on Friday evening. Now, smugger than a smug person on their way to Smugville, having only paid half the fare, are Mark and Jules, because they've got their wild card still to play, and they're going to bring in loads of lovely players.
Yes, we do. We are feeling quite smug about this, aren't we, Mark? We planned to save it. Well, you told me to save mine up until this point. And before we get on to having a look at your wildcard draft team, we have to say both our wildcards are activated, but there is one big advantage that Mark has over me, other than the fact that he's got way more points, and that is his squad value. Have a look at this. This is incredible. 107.8 million, considering we all started with 100 million at the start of the season. I'm on only 101.7, so I've only made 1.7 million since the start. You've made 7.8. How have you done that?
I mentioned this last week. You told me off for gloating. Now you want to hear about it. Okay, so basically it's down to early transfers. It's just taking a risk, because we know player prices rise based on their performance and the number of transfers they get before the next deadline. So what I've done this season a lot, because I've had a 5-man midfield, I've been able to jump on transfers early, take a risk with a transfer, maybe on a Saturday night or Sunday night, and get in before the rise. And because of that, my value has slowly increased. It's players like Lukaku, Alonso, Sanchez and Hazard, I got them early.
See, the difficulty with that is that I tend to, if I have 2 transfers or I have a free one and then I'm going to spend points on my next one, I tend to wait until last minute because I need the money from both. So how do people like me get to up my money if I'm doing that every week?
Yeah, normally that is a good tactic. One thing that I've done this season, when I bank a transfer, when I've carried a transfer over and I've got 2, that means you've got the security of that extra transfer. That if you make one and you get an injury in the week, you've got that one to fall back on. That is a useful tactic to do. So when you have 2 transfers, make one early and try and catch a price rise, and that will get you the budget. And at the end of the season, at this point, this is when it really comes into play.
Yeah, that makes a massive difference. Okay, so that's a tip for next season for me for sure. Let's take a look at your team then, Mark. I have to say, you are in the top 300 in the world, which is incredible. This is a team you've put together for your wildcard team. You've made quite a few changes, even from last week. The main one, this boy down here, Victor Anichebe.
Yeah, he's been so good for this season. When he came into my team earlier in the season, it meant I could go 5 in midfield, and I think that has been the big success in my team this season, having 5 midfielders, and I think that's a powerful midfield to take into the final run-in. And it means, because I've got Gabbiadini out for Anichebe, I've had the money to invest at the back, and Koscielny and Cech, I think, are 2 key targets for the game.
You just mentioned that with James a moment ago. What about Jesus, though? You're choosing him as your pairing with Harry Kane.
Yeah, I mean, Kane is a must-have, I think, and Jesus has come back into the equation a bit quicker than I expected. I didn't expect him to get 90 minutes last time out. the fixtures are so good for City. I haven't got Sané in midfield, so Jesus, I think, picks himself in there. So that's what I'm going with right now. I don't think that's going to change too much.
OK, no Costa in there. There's a few players that I'm thinking of that you haven't got in your team. Are you worried about anyone in particular, about not having them? Who's your kind of main concerns?
Yeah, I think Sané, maybe Costa up front, but I've got Hazard. I think I've got most of the big guns in there, and it really depends on what Cech and Koscielny give me. If Koscielny can get me a goal, if Cech can get me some bonus points, then that should cover maybe for Costa's goals that I don't have.
Now, you've got 13 of your 15 players in your squad featuring in the double game week. Why did you not go for those other two? Why not all 15?
It's just a question of cost, and I think Holgate has got a good fixture in game week 37, and also King is a player who I just don't think I can get rid of that. I mean, so 13 players with double game week for game week 37 with my bench boost, I'll settle for that.
Very quickly, Stevens on the bench, even though Southampton have 2 matches in this game week?
Yeah, I want to play Alonso at home to Middlesbrough. I've got to play Koscielny. I think Yoshida's the most assured. I think, as I said earlier, I think he may have a goal in him. Stevens is good, but I just think I've got to make a tough decision, and I've made it and put Stevens on the bench.
OK, thank you very much, Mark.
Thanks, Josie. Yeah, sorry to hear about all those tough decisions you're having to face up to this week. Well, time now for us to hear from one of the real cult heroes of this fantasy game, Swansea's Icelandic star, Gylfi Sigurdsson, a geezer from the land of the geezers, and a man who's constantly being told, hey, you're in my fantasy team.
Does get mentioned a lot. They're either telling me to get a goal or assist because they got me in, or thanking me if I have scored or got an assist. So yeah, they do mention it a lot. $300,000.
300,000.
Yeah.
Are you being conservative there? Are you being modest?
Just going off a percentage.
Well, you're way off on that one. $500,000.
Okay. That wasn't far off.
Well, no. All right then. Okay. Sorry, you're only 200,000 off.
Yes, of course.
Okay. You want to embellish on that?
This is simple, isn't it?
Yeah, well, maybe we should. Good fixture this weekend, isn't he? At home to an Everton side that's really started underperforming. Anyway, let's have a look at the questions that you've been sending in via Twitter @officialFPL. An interesting one to start with. Is it better, says Ronan, to have a goalkeeper with 1 easy fixture at home to Middlesbrough or one with 2 less easy fixtures in a double game week?
I think Cech is a must-have out of these two. I mean, it's quite surprising over the last 12 game weeks, he's returned a save point in every one of those. He's made 16 saves in the last 3. You're not really expecting that from an Arsenal keeper. He's been kept busy. Courtois isn't kept anywhere near as busy as that. So I think Cech will return bigger.
All right, David Capel says, would you have Pedro or Son for the season run-in?
This is a tough one. I think the key here is if you want Spurs assets, and you should have them, perhaps you should have 3 Spurs assets in your squad. You want ones that are going to play week in, week out. I don't think Son fits in that bracket right now.
But can you say that about Pedro?
Not so much, but he comes on and he makes an impact, and he's cheaper as well by 0.4. And also, I just think you want those Spurs slots occupied by Eriksen, Kane, and Ali.
Okay, it's time for Sigurdsson from Iceland. It says what to do with Walker. That's Carl Walker, not Sky Walker. You know, May the 4th. Keep or transfer?
I think we have to trade him out at this point.
He's in contract dispute now with Spurs.
Yeah, and he's in rotation with Trippier constantly. I think that's going to continue. And like I said, you want 3 Spurs assets that play week in, week out.
Right. Quadro Amanqua says, can you name any cheap defenders for the next... Well, he says 3 or 4 game weeks. There's only 3 left, of course.
Well, the Southampton pairing, we talked about Stevens and Yoshida. Apart from that, I think Robert Hoof at 4.9 is a very good option. He's had 23 shots this season, more than any other defender, and he's got the double game week to come as well.
Okay, good option. Staying with Leicester, Tom in England says, Albrighton as a midfielder enabler, or is there a more reliable option out there? By enabler, he means a player who's so cheap, he allows you to free up funds to spend on a big name elsewhere. Yeah,
no, I think Albrighton is a good option in that price. It's quite sparse in that area for game week 37 double assets, and I think Albrighton is always a factor for Leicester. They've got the 2 fixtures, always good service in the left-hand side.
All right, Santos says, I've got all-out attack, bench boost and wild card. How do I use them wildly?
It's wild card now. Get the wild card in there, bench boost for 37, and then I guess he has to use the all-out attack for the final game week.
Almost out of time. Let's join Jules over there very quickly, Jules.
Yes, let's take a look at captain picks, Mark. You've selected a few for us. I saw that You had captained Harry Kane, hadn't you?
No, I'm going with Sanchez.
You're
It's
going with Sanchez,
got to be
okay.
Sanchez. Again, it's the fear factor. I think he will deliver in one of those two fixtures. So I think we have to go with him. Single game week player, it'll be Eden Hazard for me.
Right, OK, well, Arsenal have a double game week. Southampton have a double game week.
Thank you.
There's an early deadline, Jules.
There is an early deadline. Friday night football. West Ham against Tottenham. Remember, there is a 7 o'clock UK deadline to get your team sorted. But that is what we're all talking about, the double game week 36. That's Arsenal and Southampton, both with 2 fixtures in the space of 1 game week. And then we've got another one next week as well.
Yo, all right, that's it for today's show. Goodbye, and may the Fraser Forster be with you.
Bye.